right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So basically in class 11th physics, you have your first unit. The name of this unit is physical world and measurement. So see Maha, physics becomes very difficult when you step up in class 11. But if you study it on a regular basis, it is not as tough as it seems. So slowly and slowly you can even learn all these things. Before that, just tell me one thing, Maha. What's the current lesson going in physics in your school right now? Right now, I think vacations must be going on.
Yes, ma'am. We finished 2 chapters.
2 chapters are finished. So the dimensional analysis one is finished and the motion in a straight line one is finished. Which one?
Yes. Yes,
Both
ma'am.
these chapters are finished. All right. So, see, in the regular batches which you will be joining, most probably we are also doing motion in a straight line also, but your backup will be provided because many a time we are having going to soon classes on these chapters. But since it's a very short today, you have a very short class today with me, so we'll be starting with the first chapter only. That is your dimension analysis portion. Clear? Fine.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Now, see, just an introduction to the syllabus includes that your chapter 1 includes the introduction to physics, which has the basic motion forces, the forces available in nature. And from chapter 2 onwards, chapter 2 is divided into 3 parts. Major portion is comprised by dimensional analysis part. Third part is error analysis. Error analysis portion is basically used when you are dealing with instruments, or if you have your classes offline right now, then you must be using these instruments in lab, like vernier calipers is there, screw gauge is there. So when we use these instruments, it leads to wear and tear, and because of wear and tear, there is always a chance of having error in the calculation. So that portion is dealt in error analysis. And the last part is measurement of length, mass, and time. How to measure length? Because length can be measured. If I give you this pen and I ask you what's the measurement for this pen, you can easily put a scale and tell me what's the measurement for this length. So length can be there, mass can be there, time can be there. What kinds of quantities are length, mass, and time? That we'll discuss right now. So if we start with the first one, dimensional analysis, the basic thing that you should be aware of is the term physical quantity. This term that is there, which is the term physical quantity. This is a very basic quantity. And also, I'll suggest you not to write down anything right now. I'll give you sufficient time according to you. So you can easily copy down all the points. So right now, just listen. Physical quantities. These are basically those quantities which you can measure with the help of anything, or you can visualize and measure it. For example, quantities like the example that I gave you of this pen, measure this pen, the length of this pen. You can put up a scale and tell me what's the length of this pen. If I ask you what's the weight of this mobile phone, you can put it on a weighing machine and you can see what's the weight of this mobile phone. So you can easily find out. Or if I ask you what's the time, using the watch, you can tell what's the time. So you are able to do what? You are able to measure the length, you are able to measure the weight, and you are able to measure the time. It means any quantity that is or that is present which we are able to measure, that quantity is known as a physical quantity. If I ask you, Maha, tell me how much honest you are, or tell me, Maha, how much happy you are, can you answer me it in terms of any physical quantity? Like, can you tell me how much kg of happiness you are comprising, or how much kilometers of truthfulness is in you? No?
No.
Definitely not. But if I ask you what's your weight, what's your height, all these quantities you will be able to measure because these are physical quantities. So the definition of physical quantity basically says that these are those quantities which can be measured. All right, like length, mass, time, many quantities are there. And the whole physics, that is your class 11th, class 12th. See, physics is divided into two parts. Some portions are covered in class 11th, some portions are covered in your class 12th. In class 11th or even in class 12th, without understanding what is meant by physical quantities, you won't be able to understand further. So physical quantities, it's not that this chapter comes in very much detail and you are asked to write the definition of all these lessons. Basically, slowly and slowly you will be aware of all the physical quantities that are included in your syllabus. Now, physical quantities are also not of one type. A physical quantity, this is divided or classified into two major groups. The first group that you have is known as a fundamental quantity. And the second group that you have, that is known as a derived. So starting with the fundamental quantities, what is meant by fundamental quantities? If you are able to express any quantity with the help of something, so that something, no, with the help of which you are able to construct other quantities, you call it as a fundamental quantity. For example, if I tell you length, I tell you define length with the help of some other quantity. So you will keep on thinking and thinking and thinking, but there won't be any other quantity with the help of which you are able to describe length. Length is a basic property. But if I ask you to describe velocity, if I ask you to describe area, if I ask you to describe perimeter, with the help of length, you will be able to calculate all these things. You will be able to tell me the circumference of a circle. You will be able to tell me the area of a rectangle with the help of length only. So you are able to tell me that area is length multiplied by breadth. For a circle, the perimeter is 2 pi r. So these area, these perimeters, this velocity, which is distance divided by time, all these are new quantities. But what was that basic quantity that was building it? It was length. But length couldn't be defined by any other quantity. Keep thinking of any quantity. Time. Can you describe time? Can you create a formula where, with the help of time, which makes the formula for length? No, the answer is simply no. Why? Because these are fundamental quantities. These are the building block quantities. They too cannot be expressed in terms of other quantities, whereas they help in expressing other quantities. So these quantities are known as fundamental quantities, and they are also of not a single type. In your SI system, have you heard of the term SI system, Maha?
Yes, ma'am.
You have heard. That's great. SI system is basically standard international system where you basically have the prescribed units, SI units are there. So in the SI system, basically there are 7 fundamental quantities and 2 supplementary quantities. So we'll deal with each of these 7 fundamental quantities and each of the 2 supplementary quantities in today's class only. But before that, I'll suggest you just note down all these points from here. I'll be scrolling it down slowly. When you're done, just let me know.
Ma'am, can you scroll down? Okay, done, ma'am.
All right. Now let's just see these 7 fundamental quantities which are present in the SI system. See, the first quantity is mass. So mass, you are aware of the amount of matter that is present within the. This is denoted in dimensional analysis. This is denoted with the help of capital M. SI unit of mass. This is kg. Then we have second quantity, length. Length can be measured with the help of other various devices as well, which include your screw gauge systems are there, vernier caliper systems are there, simple meter scales are there. So length is represented through a capital L whose SI unit is meters. Can you tell me the CGS unit, by the way, Maha? Do you remember the CGS unit?
No, ma'am.
I'll tell you. CGS unit basically means centimeter, gram, seconds. So for mass, it becomes gram. For length, it becomes centimeter. And for time, time is denoted through this letter capital T in SI system as well as in CGS system. The time is represented through seconds only. S is used for seconds. Then we have temperature. So temperature, basically how to deal with temperature and everything that is provided in your part 2 class 11th NCERT, where you have temperatures, where you have the whole unit of thermal physics that includes thermodynamics, thermal expansion, and all these things. So that when we'll reach term 2's lessons, that we'll discuss. So temperature is basically heat. Sometimes in books you will see it is denoted through theta. Sometimes it is denoted through capital K. So both of these are correct. Whichever you prefer, you can use. But the SI unit is Kelvin. So Kelvin is also denoted through a capital K. Like 300 Kelvin, 400 Kelvin, all these numbers will be used. CGS unit is degrees Celsius. And when you will step up in class 12th, you have a whole lot chapters on current electricities, these kinds of lessons you will be hearing. So current electricity and all these lessons basically includes your current. So electric current is the amount of charge that flows. Rate of flow of charge is basically known as electric current. So that is dealt in class 12th basically. But you will be having these terms for in terms of dimension analysis. So you should know how to represent it. This is denoted through a capital letter A. Its SI unit is ampere. It's better if you remember all these things. You don't need to go into the CGS detail of all these now. Or till time or even temperature you can. Luminous intensity is the next thing. Luminous intensity means amount of light, the way light is coming. So amount of light, the intensity of amount of light. Intensity is also dealt a bit portion in class 11th and some portion is dealt in class 12th. So intensity, no need to worry about intensity. Luminous intensity means the intensity of anything that glows. Like bulbs intensity is there, a table lamp's intensity is there, a tube light's intensity is there. So that is luminous intensity. Intensity is basically power per unit area per unit time. No need to remember anything from here. No need to even learn the formula of anything. You will be soon as you reach the end of this class, as you reach the end of class 11, half of the formulas you will be remembering, half will be dealt in class 12. So luminous intensity, this SI unit of luminous intensity is candela. And then amount of substance in your class 11th chemistry only, you have your first lesson as mole concept. So I don't know, have you studied it, Maha?
Yes, ma'am.
You have studied it. So you must be aware about the whole mole concept. So that is the amount of substance. So the SI unit of it becomes mole. That's the SI unit. Let me write it in front of it. That's the SI unit of it. So these quantities you should be aware of writing. First, now note down both these.
Done, ma'am.
All right, so these were the 7 fundamental quantities. So as I was mentioning to you that there are 2 supplementary quantities as well along with the 7 fundamental quantities. 2 supplementary quantities, let's see. First quantity is a plane angle. Plane angle is what? Plane angle is basically angle that is formed in one dimension, 1D plane. Like if I make this line and I make another line, both the lines are meeting and subtending an angle over here. That is known as what? That is known as a plane angle. So plane angles, these are represented through the symbol theta. Do you know the SI unit of angle, Maha?
Is it radian?
Yes, yes, perfect. That's radian. It's radian. The SI unit is radian. And this is the symbol for a plane angle. Now, contrary that it was 1D, we have solid angle. That means the angle for 3D, 2D figures, 2-dimensional figures. Like if I talk about a cone, so the cone's curved surface area, they are also subtending an angle at the base of this cone. So this is known as a solid angle like this. Plane angle is angle formed at the plane sheet you can form. So this basically is the solid angle. So solid angle is denoted through the symbol omega. This is the symbol for a solid angle. Are you aware of the SI unit of solid angle?
No, ma'am.
See, you told me that the SI unit for a plane angle is radian. Just add the word STE in front of it. That becomes the SI unit for a solid angle. Stay radian. STE and the whole term radian. So these are the 2 supplementary quantities associated with the 7 fundamental quantities that are present in the SI system of units. Apart from these quantities, in the classification of a physical quantity, you have derived quantities. So basically, ultimately what happens, all these physical quantities, they combine and form another quantity or a new quantity and express it. That new quantity is known as a derived quantity. For example, if I choose two fundamental quantities like length and time, and if I divide them, if I put a mathematical operation in between them like division, if I divide length by time, I get a third and a new quantity that is known as velocity. Velocity, that is whole velocity, is dealt in chapter number 3, which is your motion in a straight line. So that also we'll do. But right now, derived quantities are what? These quantities can be expressed in terms of fundamental physical quantities. For example, there are various quantities like velocity. Velocity is expressed in terms of length and time, right? There are other quantities like force. Force is expressed in terms of mass and acceleration. Even acceleration is itself a derived quantity. Why? Because acceleration is expressed in terms of velocity and time. So all these, etc., all these quantities are basically derived quantities because they are derived from the fundamental quantities. Is this clear to you, Maha? Any doubts till now?
No, ma'am.
Just note down these additional quantities as well as the derived. I'll scroll it down once you have written it.
Okay. Ma'am, can you scroll down? Okay, done.
All right, Ma. So let's just stop here. In the next class, let's meet. Whatever timings and all suit you, that